Welcome, welcome, and bienvenidos. If you're new to Tech and Tequila, I'm so glad you're here. If you're returning, you are in for a treat. So to start out, of course, buenos dias, buenos tardes, or buenas noches, depending on what time you're joining us and able to re-listen to this. And the reason I say you're in for such a treat is because I have the great Cheri here today, also known, AKA, as your techie godmother. So along with myself, Kat, your techie chica, we have your techie godmother. So real quickly, Cheri, why don't you kind of give everybody a rundown of who you are and like what you've been up to, and of course, where you're at now.
Welcome, welcome, and bienvenidos. Thank you for joining us on the podcast, Tech and Tequila. If you don't know who I am, I'm Kat Lopez Shelby, and I'm the founder and CEO of Shelby Technology Solutions. But more importantly, you're here for Tech and Tequila, where we learn a lot about tech, and we may have some nice tequila drinks while we're at it. If you're new here, Tech and Tequila is all about everything technology based for your business. So what that means is we have suppliers on here to talk about how they can help you grow your business. We, have mindset coaches on here talking about how to help you grow your business. We're all about business and basically introducing you to different suppliers and different ways that help you within your business.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for having me back on the show. I certainly do appreciate it. I have made a polo change, wanted something a little more challenging. So I came over to Assured Data Protection a little while back. And now I am here to offer you guys disaster recovery solutions, which if you know anything about technology, you know that they're not going anywhere. They're just expanding on how much you actually need disaster recovery. So I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. No, and I could not agree more. I would say today is definitely a day for Tech and Tequila because, of course, it's Friday. It's about 4:00, and I am actually recording from the co-working space because the internet is down. And so we had to hockey puck it and come over here. But real quickly, before we get started, because we're going to cover a lot of great information about the company you're at and what you guys offer. But I wanted to cover the tequila section of this. And so I decided that today I would like to say we're having an OBG, an oldie but goodie, which for me is an espresso martini. So bear with it. I can't show the front of this cup because, we like our sponsorships paid for. But right in here is some espresso with a little bit of leche, because I personally like my espresso martini to be a little more on the sweeter side, and then a little bit of chocolate. So if you look at this, the way that they talk about it is it's usually 2 parts espresso to 1.5 parts of tequila. And then as, bringing to the table, we have the Lalo again, which is very good.
It's one of my favorites, for sure.
It is delicious. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in here and mix this up. And Miss Cheri, I know you have a drink yourself. So what are you bringing to the table today?
And I kind of pre-gamed on you a little bit because I was so excited. So I actually just made myself a little sunrise in, it's a pineapple sunrise though. So it's just a little can of pineapple juice on ice with a little hint of grenadine. I prefer the natural grenadine that's mixed with cherry and pomegranate. So I drizzled a little bit of that on there just to give it a little splash. And it says maybe just have a drink more on the front.
Love it.
I am bringing a new tequila today. And I figure since you're like family, mi familia would be fantastic. So it's Mi Familia Flores, and it is a Cristalino, but it's a reposado. And there's a really, really good one that's like even a step up from this. That's like a black one. What's so cool? Look how pretty the bottle is. Mm-hmm. What's so cool though is this cap. You see the liquid moving in it, maybe? Mm-hmm. The last shot of the bottle. Let me see.
Oh, cool.
The last shot of the bottle's in the lid.
Oh, that's awesome.
Isn't that neat? Yeah, it's very, very good. It's kind of vanilla-y. It goes really, really well with the pineapple.
No, I was going to say, I really love the Lalo tequila. And, of course, I want to say a section of them is based in the Austin area in Texas, but they only make Blanco. That's the only one they have.
It's so good. It's so clean.
It's very clean. It's
I think
I
they
like
need to
to
give you
say
a
it's smooth.
sponsorship, Kat.
They do. I was going to say from your mouth to their ears. So
Yes,
we'll
absolutely.
put that out there. But now that we have our drinks, let's get into more I would say.
There's nothing more fun than talking about technology after having a couple of drinks, right?
That is true. That is true.
I love it.
So I know you did the polo change over to Data Assured, but can you give me
Assured Data?
Assured Data? Thank you. Sorry, I said it backward.
Also known as EP.
I was going to say, can you give me just a little background into DP? And I know like why you went over there, what you love about them.
So what I love about them is the way that they're structured. The product that I'm representing is one product, and that's all it needs to be. It's essentially they are a disaster recovery company as a service. And that's where the key kicker is, right? So we don't anticipate or expect our customers to be on their own as far as recovering their data or setting up those processes. So we have different tiers that are available to our customers so they can choose how they want to replicate their data in the event that there is any kind of disaster, whether it be a hurricane or a cyber attack. And not
That's
just
true.
a hurricane, but a natural disaster.
Yeah. I was going to say too, I think a lot of it, if you're not in like per se a coastal area, you don't think about natural disasters per se, but it can be everything. And I was just on a call this morning with one of my clients in Odessa, and they weren't directly affected, but they had to shut down their entire office building for a day because of a fire that started adjacent. And so they told them to like evacuate and get out, which was basically due to what was burning. There was concern that number one, it was getting it under control and that it would spread. And you know, when you think of a disaster like that, you know, you've got tornadoes, you've got, you know, just natural, I mean, stuff happens, you know,
everywhere.
Internal. I was going to say, you know, I was thinking of ways that like a building would flood, but you know, if you're in a multi-tenant building, you never know what the tenant upstairs may do, or, you know, a pipe may burst. And those are all instances where having your information backed up would be integral to your.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually, just to give you an example, we actually had a manufacturing company that had a facility near a major river in the Midwest, and that river flooded, and they were on-prem.
Okay.
And it filled the shipping location. So you can imagine as a shipper what that does for your business. I mean, that shuts down production, and you don't even know where your trucks are going or anything like that because you don't have access to that data. So luckily for them, they were utilizing Assured, and we were able to bring them back up in their production in a Assured data center. So we replicated it, put it over in Assured data center, and the customer is up and had access to their shipping logs, and they're able to reroute their trucks and you know, work from another facility and get their products across America.
Yeah. And I really think that's what it is, you know, you want to really think about your business continuity and, you know, how, if something happens, do you basically, you know, like Thomas the Train, you know, I can do it and just keep going. Right.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was going to ask, can you share a little bit about, you know, what your company's mission is and specifically how you guys cater to the needs of the small and medium-sized businesses? Because I personally work with a lot of small and medium-sized customers, and we all know they have very tight budgets. They have very, you know, smaller IT, so to speak.
Right.
But, you know, the needs of someone who's small, medium, or medium, however you want to verbalize it, are very similar in a lot of cases to your enterprise companies.
Absolutely. As mentioned before, we're disaster recovery as a service. We utilize Rubric.
Okay.
And Rubric is a fantastic technology. And there are very specific reasons that we utilize Rubric. We're their oldest and longest MSP partner.
Okay.
So we've been with them for the last 8 years since the conception of our company, which is fantastic. But we have the ability to drive enterprise grade Rubric technology through the security stack down market by leveraging our utility pricing model with a minimum of only 2 terabytes.
Oh, wow. See,
Yeah.
and I think that right there is huge because, for some that may seem like a lot of data, but it's really not that much, especially if you're backing up, I was going to say you're backing up your whole production or you're backing up, information for your company.
Right. Mm-hmm. So we can go as small or as large. We're completely consumable. So it really is kind of nice for the customer because they get this great technology and they're able to scale it. I mean, who doesn't want to scale? Not that, if you think about it though, you say that, but at the same time, like, does data actually ever get smaller? I mean,
I was going to be like, very rarely, if you've been in business for a while, is it going to get smaller? I like to say that I am a work in progress because I am a huge email hoarder and I am the person that gets that notification like every 3 days, like clean it up. You're about to be where you can't send and receive emails. So I firmly believe that unless let's say a company divides up and maybe they, one company becomes 2 companies or they, sell off a section of their company, most of the time you're going to increase in data versus lessen what you have.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always nice to be able to be scalable because that's not, it's one of those things like we're not going to hold you back from scaling up if you need to. We're not going to sit here and wait for you to renew. We're here for the client, the end user. And at the end of the day, we want to be flexible and be able to provide those services to them.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that right there is huge, and really kind of leads into, my next question, which what is the most common data protection challenges that you see businesses face today, and how do you guys provide solutions that are tailored for these particular challenges?
I think some of the biggest problems ultimately are staffing, right? As you mentioned before, SMB don't necessarily have the ability to have a large enough staff to accommodate them, when it comes to their cybersecurity and their resiliency. So I think that's number one. Obviously, you've got the threat, you've got the bad actors, you've got natural disasters, things of that sort. But ultimately speaking, it's just making sure that there's somebody there that really can focus on your data and what's going on with it. And that's, a big thing of where we come into play because we're tiered. So we have different tiers. We have different models that customers as a service can layer on top. So we can help them manage and take away some of that overhead cost, which is fantastic. So, and they have the flexibility to give us as little or as much of that as they want.
Yeah. And I would think one of the things to add to that, because you said people, I think it's a twofold thing. Number one, if you are to go on to Indeed or any major, recruiting website, you're going to see like thousands of open positions in IT, in tech, whether that be your C-level, like your CISO, CTOs, or like IT directors, all the way down to like, I say more of a smaller need, but like a local technician. And there's also with that, there's the financial challenge of as being a small and medium-sized company, if you are scaling, if you are ramping up, it's not that you don't need someone to handle your IT, to handle your tech, but it's the fact of if it's between that or having someone in the field that's going to help bring in new businesses, you have to make those decisions.
Absolutely.
as in talking about what we were just talking about with, scaling and growing a company, where do you really see where you guys come in and help a company like expand and grow and, I would say partner, slightly advocate for your clientele?
So we have the flexibility with Rubric is it's just a scale out infrastructure that we can scale up or down to meet the data protection needs. So for instance, scale up, right? Rubric's performance scales up as you add the nodes to the cluster. And I know that gets a little techie, but that's what we're here for. Each node actually adds storage and compute resources. The system itself automatically like rebalances data and the workloads across all the nodes. That's for one. For two, we can also scale out. So that's unique as well. So we can actually scale out. You can scale basically horizontally, and all you do is add more units. Those units, surprisingly enough, are called bricks because we're utilizing the Rubric platform. So you add those bricks to the system. Each of the bricks typically contains about 4 nodes. So if you look at a rectangle, like a regular old brick, you have 4 pieces inside of that, or 4 quarters inside of that brick. And then you can add and remove the nodes literally with the click of the mouse. The system manages Rubric, and it's a single system. So really, really simplistic, user-friendly, easy interface, very clean. And then we also have a hybrid kind of cloud option. Rubric's cloud-based system solution really allows for you to scale your services, and you can scale them up or down based on the demand that you have as an overall company, which is really unique as well because you can go up or down. Most companies will only allow for you to go up, as you know. You've been doing this a really long time. Most companies penalize you for going down. So there's not that penalty there for that. But it ultimately saves you money over your IT costs by paying for what you use, which is the idea.
Well, and it's interesting that you point that out because that actually leads into my next question, which is for your SMBs and your small and medium-sized businesses, they may not have large IT budgets. How do you ensure your services are both cost effective and provide comprehensive protection? And kind of not to get too deep off into the weeds, but when you start an engagement with a customer, what does that engagement look like usually?
Yeah, that's a really nice question, actually, because we have a great, I don't even like calling it a partnership. I like calling it a relationship with our customers. So once the partner brings, the lead to us, we have a individual sales rep in different regions that covers those regions specifically because of the fact that we think it's very important to have somebody that's more customer facing. So not only do you get myself as a channel manager, but you get a salesperson in each of those spaces that is assigned to that particular customer. And what's great about that is that they get to learn the business and, really get granular with them. Not only that, but they understand the region. They understand the territory. We are talking about disaster recovery as well. So for instance, Florida has their own set of different natural disasters in comparison to Texas or Colorado or California, and so I think that that's really unique and important that we do that as well. So there's not really a handoff per se. You are with us throughout the life of the product. You always have somebody that you can turn to. And it's a relationship. It's not, and as I'm learning our customers and learning the folks that we've done business with, probably would tell you the exact same thing, because every single one of them that I've met so far has a big smile on their face when you talk about Assured. So that's really important.
Yeah, which I would say is ultimately the most important thing, is that, the customer is happy and well taken care of.
Absolutely.
That is huge. I know you walked me through one real life example, but could you walk me through maybe another example of where you guys have helped someone recover from a data breach or avoid a potential disaster?
Well, I mean, ultimately, we provide local backups and recoveries, and, we have the ability to replicate their data to a third-party data center and consolidate and then offer DR options. So I not necessarily can give you an example, but that scenario, that use case could be used across the board,
Well, and I think
And
that brings up a good point, is that, I think a lot of times certain companies are like, oh, that's just for, somebody who has HIPAA requirements or somebody who's in oil and gas. Whereas when you really think about disaster recovery, there's not many customers out there, whether you're a nonprofit or you're retail or you're like a restaurant even, where you can just be like, oh, I've lost all my data, we're okay in this day and age, like whether it be for, taxes or other purposes. So the use cases can be a plethora of different options.
Well, and just like you said, we have customers of all sizes in every single vertical you just mentioned. We meet the needs of all of those customers, and we have compliance and security checklists even. So what's nice is that the list that we provide allow the customers to be compliant at the highest levels, whether it be with HIPAA or SOC or CJIS or ISO or, any of those kind of things.
Which is super helpful, especially in this day and age, for any company that has really, I don't want to say struggled is not the right term, but, has faced the challenge of either hiring new IT or keeping IT on staff or any of the above. And I think that's really where you guys come into play. One of the things that I wanted to give you the opportunity is, of course, I love working with you, and I have this history. I say history, we've known each other quite a few years, so we're not new per se. And I know that you're a huge advocate for your clients.
Absolutely.
If you could just give, I don't want to say like, like a third, I guess just to be like completely, what would be your pitch that you would say, hey, this is why you want to pick us. This is why you want to pick me. This is why you want to work with my team. And I know that you did talk about the team being local, so having an understanding is huge. But is there anything else you want to add to that?
I think that the biggest selling factor of using us in comparison to anybody else is that, one, we utilize Rubric platform. It's a fantastic technology. Fantastic. It's an enterprise-based technology. And because our customers are able to utilize it with us as a service, they get scalability. You don't get scalability with most disaster recovery programs out there. They're not scalable. They sell you what they think you're going to need or what you're going to grow into, but they're not going to sit there and say, oh, you know what? Last month you didn't use as much data, so we're not going to charge you for it. That's the last thing they're going to say. But with us, if you don't use all of your data, then you don't need to pay for all of it. And I think that is the biggest selling factor if you're looking at dollars and cents. If you're not, and you just want a really great company, we're up there number one too, because we do hold the hand of the customer, and there aren't very, it's such a tech type company, it's such a tech type technology, if you will. Right. And, it's not like a program. It's not an app, although we do have an app for that. That notifies you and all that good stuff too. But it's not an easy technology for just anybody to jump right into. But when you utilize the service with us, we do make it easy. We do all the hand holding. We do walk you through the steps. We can help with your installations. We're here and happy to answer questions. And that's, I think, a big, big difference because they can utilize us as a service. Whereas other disaster recovery platforms out there, they're going to sell you your storage. You're not going to get hand holding. You're not going to get a personalized experience. And I think that's a big issue in the space, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say too, I mean, I won't name the names of some of these larger entities, but it's like, if you don't have the staff as, a small and medium sized business, it's kind of a guessing game. And then they may make changes within like 6 months, and not to say that Rubric doesn't make changes, but having you guys there to say, here's what the change was, and here's what we recommend is a lot better than, I don't want to say random Joe Schmo, but the person in the office who's like, well, here's how we went. This is what we're doing. And they've sent me like 18 updates,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Nobody likes that. And then you're like, why am I getting these updates? And then you try to call customer service and, 4 hours later, you don't have an answer. Again, we're not going to mention any of the big names out there, but
we're not going to mention any names.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I do. They're the reason I have my own bottle of tequila. What can I say right here? That is one of the reasons that I wanted to have you back on the podcast, is because, I've known you for a long time. You advocate for your clientele, you advocate for your advisors, and you wouldn't have like switched the polo per se to go work in a company that's not going to, I don't want to say answer everyone's, woes, but is not going to be open to providing top-notch customer service, and in this day and age, I mean, I've gone into, I have a customer that tells me this on a regular basis. If my printer won't work, it is less expensive for me to go to the store and buy a brand new printer than me get on the phone and try to fix it.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And I am a big advocate for, let's not work somewhere that has a bunch of problems. And it's the people. Right. Yeah. It's the people and the processes. And, I am very particular about where I work and where I lay my head, so to speak, because I want to make sure that the brand matches my brand and what I stand for. So you're absolutely correct. When I came over to Assured, there was a big kind of look into the culture. And honestly, that's the biggest reason that I'm here. And I know it's crazy. It's not a paycheck. But the technology itself is far better than most any that I've seen out there. The way that we position it in comparison, I love it because it has the scalability, which we've talked about. But ultimately speaking, it's flexible. And the culture is fantastic. I'll give you an example. I went in for training and we all went out and had a happy hour, a random, sporadic, not planned, just the office going out for a happy hour. Leadership made an effort to make sure I was comfortable and make sure I was known to them, Not very many companies out there that do that. And so that to me means a lot. That goes really far in my book, is making sure that not only your customers are happy and taken care of, but making sure your employees are. And I think that that's why our customers are so happy, is because our employees are so happy.
Yeah. And I was going to say, not to reiterate what you said earlier, I think it's intriguely important because I have seen this with a lot of the larger companies where they don't have somebody that's local to the region. And while that's not to say that this person doesn't understand like hurricanes or doesn't understand tornadoes or whatever, it's that when someone is local, they really understand, and I'm going to use the word, the community and the culture that they're working with, I'm somebody who has, I've worked in West Texas, I've worked in South Texas, and I've, have customers in El Paso. And I always tell people El Paso is like the largest small town vibe you could possibly ever imagine. It's, the sales cycle is different. How you interact with your clientele is different. And so
I think
I can
Texas
see
as a
that being huge.
whole is different in comparison to the rest of the country. We just do things a little bit different here in Texas, and we don't just trust anybody, which is a big thing, Not putting my
Very
neck out there
true.
for just any old company.
I always say it's funny because I obviously used to work for one of the big guys. If you look at my LinkedIn, you'll know who it is. But we used to have people come down from one of the larger cities, and I was in West Texas, and inevitably, at least one of my customers would be like, "That guy didn't wear boots and jeans. Does he work for a living?" And I'd be like, "Yes," But and not to say it's stereotypical, but I mean, I always say that I go prepared if I have to like unplug, get underneath things to figure out what's going
right.
on. You're wearing your jeans, you're wearing your boots, or you're ready to work when you're out and about.
Get in the trenches.
So, exactly. No. Well, I really appreciate you coming on today. And so the very last thing that I always ask people to do is, just what is the best way for any of our listeners to get in touch with you if they're like, man, I heard about this and I am super interested? Should they hit you up on LinkedIn? Where should they look for you at?
They can absolutely find me on LinkedIn. And you can find me at Cheri Dolan, or if I believe if you look up the Fairy TECHmother, you can find me there as well. And you can also reach me at our website, assureddp.com. Also, my email address is Cheri, Cheri.Dolan, Dolan, at assured-dp.com.
I love it. You know what? I would be remiss. I know I said that we were at the tail end, but if I did not ask you this question, because, I was just in a training actually the other day about cybersecurity threats, and they are becoming so much more sophisticated. So how do you guys stay ahead of the curve and ensure that your clients are protected from the latest threats?
That is such a great question because you're absolutely correct. So we do a couple of different things. One, I have to mention the fact that we do save the data. We partner up with Rubrik and we do a save the data. And if you guys have not done a save the data, please, by all means, be on the lookout for it. I will be posting on my LinkedIn for save the data events. And we replicate a actual cyber attack. And we sit down with you and we walk you through the process of recovering your data. So you may need some more tequila for it. So it's a little stressful environment, but it's a great opportunity for you to learn, just kind of where you are as a company. Are you going through all the necessary steps? Do you have everything in place? So that's one. The other thing is our cyber resiliency model is based on a zero trust architecture. So we combine that with the enterprise grade protection, obviously, of Rubrik Enterprise Solutions, and their security tools. And we make sure that our customers always recover and never pay the ransom. Never.
I'd like to get an amen and some double snaps to that one. No, I love that because what you covered with the save the data is so important. And I cannot tell you the number of times that someone has reached out to me that has had an event and they go because first off, let's be very transparent. When a bad actor gets on your network, they're going to hang out there for a while. They're not normally just going to come in and hit you straight out the gates, and they can actually hang out on your network for up to a year without having anything happen. So part of that save the data is to look at and go, okay, this backup was for sure, and we'll put in parentheses clean, and this is not a clean backup. Because I can tell you right now, I have a customer that, it was twofold. They weren't checking their backups. Let's be very transparent. But they also weren't sure at what point that the bad actor got into their servers, into their information. And so number one,
clean rooms. We provide clean spaces where they can even put their data that they know is clean into these clean spaces. And a lot of companies don't offer that. but we do. And that's a differentiator as well. But the biggest thing about Save the Data is most companies think that they have done everything they possibly can. That's the biggest misconception is I have spent this amount of money and I have done this, this, and this. I'm safe. I'm good. But the problem with that is you may have done those necessary precautions, but did you also, set it up where you could recover in the event? And that's when people are like, whoa, I don't think I did that, so that's what we're here to teach.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, it's not even just set it up to recover. Do you know what to do in the case of an actual event?
Well, and who's there to support you? Do you know the phone number to call if in the event? You know what I'm saying? Is somebody going to answer the phone? Are you going to be on the phone for 4 hours?
Exactly. Because, let's be very transparent. Typically, when someone has something like this happen, it's not happening Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. These type of events happen at 3 a.m. in the morning or, Sunday on the weekends. Technically it can happen anytime, but that is what it is. And I always advise my clients that one of the things you want to do is, whether it is like, okay, this computer has had an incident or it's been breached or something, like magically somebody's showing at like 3 a.m. that's never on at 3 a.m. What do we do? Do we deactivate that person? How do we take care of that? And I think that Save the Data is going to really answer that for a lot of people, especially, give you more peace of mind and a better understanding.
Absolutely. So. And I'll just give a simple little plug since you are in the Austin area, Madame. Yes. We are coming to Austin with Save the Data in December.
Ooh, that's so exciting.
It is so exciting. I'm super pumped about it. I also will have local presence. I have a sales associate that is moving to Austin, who is amazing. You've met her. And she will be present for that as well. So we're so looking forward to bringing the Save the Data event to Texas. So just be on the lookout for it.
I know, and not to mention that you are trying to get one in West Texas as well, because we want to make sure that we cover absolutely everybody. So
we are actually going to do Central Texas, probably South Texas, as well as West Texas. So we're going, Texas is so big. We're doing our very best to work with the Rubric team so that we can bring these services out there. But in the event that you want to come to the Austin one, because it's happening, by all means, reach out to Kat and she will hook you up with the link. I will also have it eventually, sooner rather than later, on my LinkedIn for you to just go on and sign up. But we're expecting a very large crowd and it'll be first come, first serve. So we are so looking forward to it.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sure that we will have you back. We might possibly have you back after we do a Save the Data. So maybe we can take a little more deep dive and understanding that, but look forward to it. Make sure all Cheri's information will be in the information section, as well, of course, my information. As always, we want to enjoy our tequila, and we want to have a nice adult beverage at the end of the evening out of enjoyment, not out of stress. Have a great evening.
Happy Friday.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of Tech and Tequila. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. To stay updated about all things tech and more, don't forget to visit us at our website, shelbyts.com. If you loved what you heard, remember to show your support by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our podcast. Your 5-star ratings and reviews mean the world to us and help us to reach more listeners just like you. So muchas gracias again for joining us with Tech and Tequila. Thank you so much. You learned a lot about tech, and maybe you had a nice drink of tequila.